Welcome to Tanya Outside In class. It's Perek Ches, part two. B'ezrat Hashem, we will finish the Perek today. But because it's not that much to do left inside, although we could talk about it for a long time. I just wanted to do a quick recap, a very, very quick recap, and just give Tanya on one foot, so to speak. So I suppose the most important thing that we learn in Tanya is that we've got these two opposite to call them urges is not enough. It's like a split personality in a sense. We've got two souls, two complete souls with an intellect, with emotions, with behavior, etc. And the job of the Jew, you are not the Nefesh Bahamis, and you are not the Nefesh Lakis. You are the space in which those two beings interact. And it's like whoever you kind of give the keys to, whoever you identify with, that's who you are. And obviously the goal is to identify with the Nefesh Lakis, and then we'd be calling ourselves the Nefesh Lakis. When the way they interact is that the Nefesh Bahamis wants dominion. We haven't really spoken about this right now, but the Nefesh Bahamis, Shalom Blazer, the Nefesh Bahamis is not evil, meaning it is actually evil, but evil doesn't mean what we think it means. Okay, evil just means self-involved, and it is thoroughly, thoroughly self-involved. The Nefesh Lakis is the opposite. The Nefesh Lakis is not even toiv, it's toiv ma'oid, it's elakus. It's better than good. Yeah, good is selfless. That's a human trait. The Nefesh Lakis is godly. It's a chelek elokayim mimao. It's a piece of God, whatever that means. And its desire is to merge back with God. Love dafka to always do the mitzvah, but to actually merge back with God. It just wants to go home. And in most scenarios, doing the mitzvah feels like going home. So generally, the Nefesh Lakis wants to do the mitzvah nearly always. And the Nefesh Bahamis doesn't not want to do the mitzvah. It just doesn't want its own personal agenda to get shared. So the Nefesh Bahamis, our lower side, does not have anything neged mitzvahs. In fact, if we've grown up from, or we've been from for long enough, then our Nefesh Bahamis has become like a tame animal that is actually very happy doing mitzvahs. And in fact, it would feel quite uncomfortable if we were to stop doing mitzvahs. So it's very important to know that our lower side is not this kind of demonic, sadistic, malevolent, like destructive force that's just trying to wreak havoc. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's just selfish. It just cares about itself. And we explained that the soul is made up of seichel and midas. Okay, we have the intellect and we have our emotions. The intellect is chokhmah, bina, and das, which we described as being discovering the idea. That's chokhmah. Developing the idea, that's bina, and then identifying with the idea, which is a very, very important point. That means my sense of self and the idea merge with one another. Okay. Now, at that point, when I'm starting to take the idea personally, now emotions are born. See, seichel, there's nothing personal about seichel. Seichel, the way that 1 + 1 = 2 is shavel kol nefesh. And if I'm not here, 1 + 1 = 2. But my love for you, that requires me. There is no my love for you without me. So the idea of emotions are predicated on sense of self. If there's no sense of self, if there's no experience of self, then there's no emotions. There can't be by definition, because emotions are love, me moving towards, or fear, or hey, whatever you want to call it, me moving away. But it's about me. So seichel is just about it, however it works, whatever makes sense, etc. When we go into the seichel with enough energy, then that idea, so to speak, falls into our das, and we merge with the idea. That idea and us we become identified with one another. And now I have emotions towards the idea. Emotions are expressed by way of behavior. If you have emotions, the two primary emotions are love and fear, ava and yira, which is basically an attraction towards or a repulsion away. And if you have ava and yira in regards to some kind of idea or concept or whatever it is, then you will behave in a certain way. Behavior takes the form of there's three modes of behavior: machshava, dibur, and maisa. Machshava is internal. It's an internal garment. It's still a garment. Dibur is already going out. It's a bridge between me and you. And action is all about you. But the expressing in behavior is called garments, because the emotion and the intellect, so to speak, become enclosed in an action. Being enclosed in something means, just like you see right now, my body's moving, but you see my clothes are moving. The idea of something being enclosed in something else means it's motivating it and it's energizing it. It's causing it to move, so to speak. So behavior is called levushim, garments, and they are external to the soul. Even machshava, which is internal, is still considered external to the soul. And a very important point, a very important thing to remember, one of the reasons why they're called garments is that you can discontinue them at will. You can take them off and put them on as you wish. So you never need to say something to you never, not need to, you might feel that you need to. You are always able to not say something to your wife. And as we've said many times, the question is just, what's the price? Because sometimes, we all know that there's sometimes things that we want to say to our wife that if someone would offer us $1,000, we'd still say it because it's just, we're in so much pain right now. But if somebody was to offer us $10,000 or $100,000, depending on your bank account, or $1 million, you would be able to bite your lip. Meaning that you can always discontinue a behavior, always. And that is so comforting. I can't really think of anything more comforting than that. That a healthy human being is always in control of his behavior. And if you're not, it's unless you're not healthy, but we'll assume that you're healthy. If you're not in control of your behavior, it's because you've made a conscious decision to do X. And that even goes for thinking. I've been working on thinking now for a long time, and it's very, very rare that I have a destructive. I'm going to say this now. I'm going to open the. I don't want to bring any kitchoigim on me, but I just want to give you a chizuk that it's very rare that I have a destructive thought. Like, I get stupid things pop into my mind in Kriya Shema and stuff like that. Like, but those are tikkunim. But the idea of like going down, how it works with thinking, after having struggled with this for a long time, I'll tell you the truth is, my real fight with thinking is when I go into the bathroom to not be thinking Divrei Torah. And that sounds very guy-evident, but that's really my struggle with thinking. But it's the same struggle as what I used to have with negative thoughts. It's the same thing. You're not allowed to think Torah in the bathroom. So you have to stop. But you're not allowed to think those negative thoughts about yourself. You have to stop. Whatever it takes, you have to stop. You're not allowed to think those thoughts. And those thoughts go down, and what they do, we'll finish on this point, but this is a very important point, that we've discovered in this generation, if anybody's interested in learning deeper, and we'll talk about this actually, is that there's a man called Joe Dispenza. Anyone heard of him? Put up your hand if you heard of him. Or do a little thing. Yeah. So Joe Dispenza, oh, you like him? So Joe Dispenza, he's actually a more different guy. Like but what he's basically done is he explains LP biology and science what we've known, you know, what Chazal knew, just Chazal called them things like demons, Shindaladim. He calls them chemicals. That's they're talking about the same thing, the exact same thing. Now, what happens is there's a chemical release. Someone says to you, "I hate you," yeah, Chas v'shalom, and it makes you feel a certain way. It makes you feel however it makes you feel. Everyone knows, fill in the blank, yeah. That feeling is a chemical. That feeling is a chemical that your brain produced. Now, that feeling, just like everything in creation, wants to live. Just like the cat, that disgusting cat next to my house that's like just, you're like, why don't you just die? Yeah, he still wants to live. Everything that's alive wants to live. That shin dullard, or that chemical, or that feeling, whatever you want to call it, all it wants to do is live. So that's why when somebody's angry, you can't say to them, relax, chill out, because you're just talking to anger. And if you're telling anger, you're basically saying to anger, kill yourself. And you can't do that. That's literally how it is. So what's happening is this chemical gets produced in the brain. Yeah, you call it a shindalad, a demon, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it goes into the blood. It makes you feel a certain way. That feeling wants to continue living. So what does it do? Where does it get its energy from? How does it continue to live? It encloses itself in letters of thought. And it makes you think certain things, certain thoughts, certain ideas that resonate on its negative, destructive level, and it causes more of this chemical. Because now you're thinking, not only did that guy just told you he hates you, yeah? But now you've got in your mind remembering all those times that your big sister told me that she hates you. And then you remember now the guy in school who used to say that to you. Now, all of a sudden, you've become completely unlovable. In fact, now you've realized actually how unlovable you really are. And what's that doing? The more you're thinking about that, is that's that shin dalad, or that chemical, becoming enclosed in the letters of machshava, causing the production of more of that chemical. And that's the downward spiral to Gehenna. So by being aware of the fact that these feelings that you're having inside yourself are just chemicals. And if we were to take, I'm not, what's the word? I'm not saying they're not real. They are real, but they're chemicals. And if we were to take some kind of very strong, you know, other chemical, it would be nullified. So, but the problem is that that chemical hijacks our thinking. It becomes enclosed in negative letters and words and produces more of the same chemical. So if we could just get very aware of this, the mechanics of how this works, it puts us in an incredibly powerful position, Bezrat Hashem, to not get caught up in this craziness. Like, to the point when bad thoughts come to your mind, what I used to do, what I would still do if they come to my mind, is like I've said to many people, I'll just start looking around and I'll start analyzing the world. I'll be like, wow, look at that tree, and look at the white, the sky behind the tree, and how many leaves there are, and then like, why are the leaves green and the trunks brown? And just ask stupid questions about what you're looking at. And within a few moments, literally, it's usually within 10, 15 seconds, yeah, you've forgotten about what you were thinking about. And you can keep doing that. And I know it's like, oh, you can keep doing it. And in fact, I would go as far as to say is you have a chiyuv to keep doing that. I would say that just like you have a chiyuv, when you're thinking words, you walk into the bathroom, you're thinking divrei Torah, and you have a chiyuv to stop thinking those thoughts. I would go as far as to say is when you have a chiyuv to stop thinking those negative thoughts, a chiyuv to move your mind to someplace else. Okay.
I think based on what you're saying, it's easier to catch the thought before it gives birth to the initial emotion. Once that initial emotion starts, now you get pulled into a spiral. You got to catch that first thought, no? The second thought.
No, sometimes the emotion is produced. Someone just turns around and says, you're ugly, I hate you. All of a sudden, you're like this. That chemical got released, pitomi. You with me? Anyway, so the chemical got released immediately, and I mean, look, if you can stop the first thought, that's great. But usually you can't stop the first thought. The chemical is just an automatic reactive. It's just released. It's a reactive. It's reactive. It's a response. So it's a reaction. The initial chemical. Now, once you know that feeling that you're having, that you usually translate into the words "you're absolutely rubbish," yeah. Remember that you're not rubbish. There's a feeling there's a chemical inside of you that stems with the words "you're absolutely rubbish." But if that same person had put their hand around you and said, "I love you, I think you're gorgeous," yeah, then you would have another chemical got produced that makes you feel that would become enclosed in other positive words. You know, you're really not that bad at all. You're actually quite a good guy. Remember that time when that person said this and that happened, etc. So it's usually you're fighting a chemical first before you're fighting a machshava. That's usually where the fight is. To recognize that the reason why you feel like this is just chemical. It's just biological. It's just physiological. It's just a little, it's like a tipa just a tipa of mayim. It's just a little bit of wetness that's in your blood that makes you feel like, I mean, look, anybody here has taken acid, yeah? You know that a teeny tipa of acid can do crazy things to your mind, yeah? That's how powerful chemicals can be. And some people have an actual problem, and there are chemicals being released by the brain without anything happening. That's called chemical depression. That's and that needs to be treated chemically again. But again, it's just chemicals, and that the Chazal called them shin daladim, demons, but we call them chemicals. No difference. Okay, so that was I don't know. Somebody probably just had to hear that. I don't know why we got into that, but okay. So Perek 8. V'chein, we're about 10 lines up. First one of the word is she'efsha. Slicha, that was a lie. First one of the word is tumasa. Okay. V'chein, mi she'efsha lasot b'torah. Remember, we're in the scary words of the Tanya. This is all the Gehenim. This is the Gehenim stuff. But he's not talking about Yiras Oynesh. There's a Metzias. As we know, the Rebbeinu Shloim runs the world with schar and Oynesh. How do we know this? Because you look around yourself. If you're a good boy, generally things will go well for you. If you're a naughty boy, then, things go bad for you. If you smoke cigarettes, that's not good. If you work out and you watch what you eat, that is good. And that is pashut, that is called schar and oynesh. And you see the way, if you work hard and smart, yeah, not always, but if you work hard and smart, there's a good chance you're going to be matzliach. If you sit around and waste time and watch YouTube, there's a good chance you won't be matzliach. That's called schar and oynesh. So the Rebbeinu Shalom is a big fan of schar and oynesh. Not that should be motivating us. So we're right now in these words of Gehenim and all kafa keller and chibuta keva, etc. So now v'chein misha efshlo la'asot b'torah v'oisei b'devarim b'teilim. Now we spoke about the Amar Aretz who doesn't know any Torah. And he's just talking shtuyot. Yeah, he has to go through what's called kafa keller. But what about the guy like us who can be talking Torah and we're not talking Torah, we're talking shtuyot, divine batalim. Ain kafa, and by the way, that means divine batalim is like, I mean, talking to somebody and listening to somebody and helping somebody, that's not divine batalim. I mean, we've got the perfect example of divine batalim is watching YouTube. Okay. Even talking about YouTube at your Shabbos table with your children is not divine batalim, in my opinion, because just giving your kids, just having some kind of discourse with your children and on their level. I mean, it used to be very hard for me because I used to like to speak Torah at my Shabbos table, and my kids basically allergic, except for one of them, are allergic to hearing Torah. So I have to talk about cars and business and and that's my avoid on Shabbos. That's mama's divine kadoshim, ma'oid. I'll just say as a side point, I said to a friend of mine today that Hashem created the world with devarim, yeah, with words, including you. You and me are made of words. So when we speak Divrei Torah, when we become one shtick Torah, we're being Mezakeh the Rebbeinu Shalom Divrei Torah. He's speaking Divrei Torah through us. If we become the opposite of that, then we're forcing the Rebbeinu Shalom to speak Divine B'Teilim. Like this Shabbos, I was forced. I had a guest I had a guest, and I was forced to listen to him speak about like politics, basically. And I had, I got his whole. I could write an essay on his whole shita and stuff. Yeah, that was a big tsar for me. It was really difficult for me. And that when we fall out of the gedder of meaning of living a meaningful life, then really in reality we're forcing Hashem to speak divine b'teilim. So we should stay kadosh and meaningful as well, Hashem. Okay, so a guy who, like us, who is shy to speaking divrei Torah and he's talking shtuyot. Ein kafakela levado moyo lenafshem lenakan lezachacha. That kafakela is not enough. He needs more than kafakela. Yeah, rak oinshim chamurim. He needs to go through very big oinshim, shema'anishim al bittul Torah befratus, that are specifically set aside for bittul Torah, specifically milvad oinish aklali lekol bittul mitzvahs asay, and that's aside from this. There's a general punishment for all the mitzvahs asay that we don't do, machmas atzlus, because we're lazy, but gehenim shel sheleg. That is called the gehenim of sheleg. And I hope none of us will have to go there. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't sound like a place you want to go to. Okay. Okay, now this is a standalone inyan. So it's like we're starting a new shir now. This is a really interesting, very relevant little piece of Tanya. I mean, all of Tanya is interesting, relevant, but this is like a little standalone piece. Okay, we're going to discuss learning secular wisdom. Is it mutter? Is it asa? Is it good? Is it bad? Does it help? Does it hinder? Any thoughts? Without getting into a whole long monologue, what do people think about learning secular wisdom?
Well, it for sure can't go against the Torah.
Okay,
that's for sure.
Meaning you read a book on atheism.
Correct. If it helps towards avodas Hashem, I would think it would be okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I've heard you say that when Hashem created the world, there's sparks everywhere, and the Jews took most of those sparks, but the Goyim kept some sparks themselves, and there's wisdom there that we can extract.
So yeah, he says there's actually a fantastic book. I got the PDF, but he said from Rav Moshe Schatz called Sparks of the Hidden Light. I printed it out. It's not in print anymore, but it's wonderful. And he gives a wonderful introduction about Chochmas Umos Olam, and it's very interesting. But okay, so let us read. Wait, did anybody else want to put in their 2 cents?
I'm going to add one more thing because I'm on fire right now, and that is, I just feel like you can learn from everybody. So there's what was that?
Including ants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You can learn from bus. I tell you one thing. One thing that I saw when I was a kid, I must have seen it 30 years ago. It was a billboard. It was like a 3 billboard thing. It must have been, 25 meters long. It was huge. 3 massive on stairs together, and it was just red with words bigger than me in white. Sleep when you're dead. That was it. I can't tell you how deep that went into my soul. That's like, it's emblazoned in my mind. So you can learn from billboards as well. I mean, everyone knows we can learn from everything. So when does it kind of stop? Like, no one would say that when you see, ants doing something impressive and you learn a lesson, no one would say that's bad. But what about when, when your non-Jewish neighbor next door sits down to you and gives you a discourse on Kant or on some philosopher and explains something to you? What's there? Or Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's very blurry where you can, where you can't, what's going on. So this is what the Tanya says, the way I understand it. It's also the way being involved in secular wisdom. Yeah, Bechlal Devarim B'Teilim. First things first, it is called Devarim B'Teilim. That is very important. Okay, that's Bechlal Devarim B'Teilim. Yachshov Le'inyan Avon Bittul Torah. And if you can be learning Torah, then why are you not learning Torah? Okay, so the way I understand it is that secular books should be kept to the bathroom. I personally don't know of. Well, you will see. Let's see what he says. Okay, so that's number one. Their first thing they're called Divine Batalim. Okay, Kamosha Kosa Behilchas Talmud Torah, as he writes in Talmud Torah. V'oid zois Yisera. Tumasa al Chochmas Umois Oidegilulim al Tumas Divine Batalim. But there's something more, Tummy. Number one, they're Divine Batalim, but there's something worse about them. They are more impure. Why? She'ela malbi shematame rak hamidas miyasoda ruach hakodesh shevenafshay lakis batumas klipas noiga shebedivine batalim habatim miyasoda ruach hara shebeklipazu. That when a guy is talking about the baseball, yeah, that's divine batalim, but that's not chochmas umoisa oilam. But I'm not talking about like getting crazy involved in stats and stuff. Just talking about general conversations about the Yankees or whatever teams are, that you don't need to use your mind in that. Or when two people are sitting at a cafe just shooting the breeze, yeah, they could talk for an hour or two and they never engage their mind properly. They're just like, yeah, I saw this, it was very nice, I had a lovely time, and like, yeah, it was nice, I had a nice time, and yeah, I saw this person, I saw that person. You didn't engage your mind. That's the emotions speaking. Like we know emotions also can become malubish in words. In fact, most of the time they do become enclosed in words. That would be like if you've ever watched any fighting things like street fights on YouTube, you'll see that a lot of the time someone will just start repeating a phrase over and over and over again. Yeah, usually a curse or something. Yeah, that is emotional speaking. That's got nothing at all to do with his mind. That's emotions becoming enclosed in words. But we do that all the time when we just talk nonsense. So that's kind of schmutzing up the emotions, your emotions, yeah? And it's klipas noiga. Why is it klipas noiga? Because there's nothing forbidden about speaking divine batalim. If it's letzoinus or lashon hara, rechilas, motzi shema, those things are all asa. That means that the ruach of the nefesh lakis would be becoming metame, being made impure with klipas tameus, with gim klipas tameus. But when we're just talking shtuyot, the emotions are becoming impure with klipas noiga, which is not good, definitely not good. But it's not the end of the world. Put it that way. Okay. Benafsha Bahamis could let ale. But it's not engaging the mind. So these two people sitting there talking about the handbag they're going to buy or the leather in their car that they're looking at, yeah, they're not engaging their mind. They didn't engage their chabad shabanafshay. Because they're just talking shtuyot. And the shaitim and the amaratzim are able to speak about this stuff. That's not the case for the wisdom, the secular wisdom. Who malbish matame bechinas chabad shebenafsha lekis betumas klipas noiga. That schmutzes up the mind with noiga. Why with noiga? Because just like Yitzi said, we're not learning We're not learning things that are forbidden, and there are things that are forbidden to learn, like, you know, different avodah zaras and things like that. Then that would be matame, the man's mind with klipas tameus. But when you're learning, there's nothing forbidden about studying, you know, physics, chemistry, and math, and reading literature and self-help books. But although a lot of the self-help books, love dafka, they actually engage your mind. In they like reading the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People does not engage your mind like learning mathematics or physics. Just doesn't. It's a different bechina. A very different bechina. But anyway, let's just talk about like physics, like things that really use your mind, yeah? That make you scrunch up the front of your head and like go, you know. Now that is just, it's not Torah. It's permissible. So just like pressing on an ice cream sundae that's made with Chalav Yisrael and has got a nice hechsher, everyone knows that's not good for you. That's not making you more of a mensch. It could be you're freaking out and you need to take it easy for a minute. Okay, let's say that's not the case. Yeah, but you just want to press. Everyone knows that that's not making you more of a mensch. It's the opposite. It's taking you out of menschlichkeit. So to talking shtuyot, see, that's being the garment of action. Shtuyot, just talking shtuyot, that's schmutzing up your emotions. But being marmik into an inyan for the pleasure of it, again, it's the same thing. Why would you be doing those equations? It's for the pleasure of it. Just like why are you speaking that stuff? For the pleasure of it. Why are you eating that ice cream? For the pleasure of it. That's the point. This is the point. Is if you're doing it for yourself, that means you're doing it for the pleasure involved. So when you're using your mind and you're deriving pleasure from the use of your mind, you're making your Chabad tameh with klipas noiga, which is basically making your mind selfish. That's the point. It's not like you're going out to hurt anyone. It's not klipas tameus, but you're just the person is becoming more selfish. Now, that means that if we're learning these things for a godly purpose and not for the pleasure of it, it might be pleasurable, but we're not doing it for that reason. This phenomenon is not happening. This problem is not taking place. So let's finish his words. Who malbi shematame bechinas chabad shebenafshe lekis betumas klipas noiga shebechochmas elu shenaflu shama b'shveres hakelim bechinas acharim shechochma kedusha k'yidil yodechein. These wisdoms, I mean, we know that these wisdoms are true. I mean, sometimes they're not, but a lot of the times they are true. So these wisdoms fell during Shviras HaKelim, which is basically how Atzilus forms and how the realms below that form. And one of the kind of fall-off products of the Shvira, because the Shvira didn't really happen the Shvira really only happened in the Midas, in the 7 Midas, and only the back of Moichin got broken, whatever that means. So that's what he means. It says the Acharaim shel Chochma the Kedusha k'yidul yodechein. That doesn't concern us. Ella, however, this doesn't take place. Ella imkain oise oisen kadoim lachtoich behen. Like we said, you're not doing it for pleasure. You're not learning Stephen Covey for the pleasure of it. You're learning it to help you have shalom bayis. You're learning it to help you build a better business so that you can earn money more easily and pay for your children's Jewish education. You're learning it so that you can help other people, to inspire other people with becoming a very impressive, effective person, etc. That's cool. Listen to the words. It's so important. That you turn it into a shovel to dig with, as opposed to a pleasure. What's the opposite of a pleasure? What's the opposite of pleasure? Don't say pain. I should say, what am I thinking right now is the opposite of pleasure. You could probably say like 100 things, as everyone always does. Pleasure is an end unto itself. We do things for pleasure for no reason, because it gives us pleasure. Why do you like pleasure? Why do I like pleasure? Everyone likes pleasure. I like pleasure. So there's no reason why we do something for pleasure. But turning this thing into a shovel to dig with, that's exactly the point, is you turn it into a means to an end. You want to hear a beautiful definition of Gehenna? This is worth writing down if you're going to write one thing down. Definition of Gehenna is mixing up ends and means to ends. That's Gehenna. When things that are meant to be ends, like your wife and children, become Chas v'Shalom, become means to ends, that's Gehenna. When things that are meant to be means to ends, like your car and your house, become ends, that's also Gehenna. When Torah, which is an end, becomes a means to an end, as we learned last week in the Or Chaim, that's Gehenna. When tefillah, everyone can appreciate this. When tefillah becomes what's the means? What in this generation has tefillah become a means to an end? I'm going to say something really, really stark. I feel that tefillah in a lot of ways has become a stop on our way to work. It's just this thing you have to go through to get to work. That's called a Rahmanas. That's called a means to an end. When tefillah becomes a means to an end, that's Gehenna. So you've got two options. You could either daven a really quick means to an ends tefillah and have 30 minutes of Gehenna, or tefillah could become an end unto itself and you have an hour and a quarter Gan Eden. The choice is yours. What would you rather have? A 30-minute Gehenna or an hour and a quarter Gan Eden? Choice is up to us every morning. We get that choice every single morning. Every morning.
If you're davening for parnasa, that could also become a means to an end.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, the way that we're.
But it's probably better than davening in order to get to your parnasa, though.
Of course, but the way you can see it is the chesaron in parnasa is giving you the schus of something to talk to Hashem about. So then it becomes actually then the chesaron in parnasa becomes a means to an end. And the sicha with the Ribbono Shel Olam becomes an end, and that's an end means it's your pleasure, and that's what you're about. You want to learn about someone, find out what gives them pleasure. What do they do for pleasure? Learn a lot about them, like that guy, that Jewish guy who the Yid who went into space just now. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, with Elon Musk. Not with him, but like on his thing, as a Yid went into space, whatever. He did all these crazy things of pleasure. You learn like he is like a billionaire who did all these wacky things. You learn a lot about that guy. You learn a lot about the guy. That's where you're at, what your pleasures are. So he says that when you're learning these things and you're turning them into a shovel to dig with, then this problem isn't taking place. Why? Because it's not about you. It's not turning something that's permissible, not a mitzvah, into an end, which means you remember the biggest confusion that we can have, the way I understand reality, is by thinking that you're an end. You are the ultimate means to an end. God is the tachlis. We are here to serve. A servant isn't an end. We might also be children, that's for sure true, but we don't need to worry about that. The Ribbono Shel Olam's got our back on that one. We are servants. We're here to serve God. And as such, we are means to the ends. We are means to an end. We're not an end unto itself. Anything that's an end unto itself that isn't the Ribbono Shel Olam, that's called avodah zarah. That's dafka called avodah zarah. So when we use it as a means to an end, we're learning physics so that we will be able to understand the Rambam's Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh. Yeah, we should be zocher to understand that. Or like right now, I'm reading the what's it called, Genesis and the Big Bang by Gerald Schroeder. Yeah, that's a real science book, but I'm learning it in context of Sheshish Mei Bereshis to give me a more broader perspective and to be able to talk to people and the Inyan, etc., etc. So that's my Shabbos reading right now. I'm being Makadish, that use of my brain. That's mamash called a kardon lachtoich behem. Well, actually, you'll see in a minute. The Hainu kadelis panes mehem berevach la'avoid Hashem. So this is the first level. Really, I kind of mushed them together. Excuse me for that. But he's basically talking about if you're learning medicine. Yeah, you're not learning medicine so that you understand, chulin and and korbanos more. You're learning it so you can earn money, so that you can give tzedakah and pay for your children's Jewish education and join a shul, base medrash, etc. Yeah. Then it's like two steps. So you're earning the money. So you're learning the subject to earn the money to be a good Jew. It's like 3 steps. Whereas, or using them in your avodas Hashem, or in your Torah, Rambam zal. And this was the kavanah of the Rambam and the Ramban HaKodesh, who were asuk in these sciences. But this is a bigger aliyah for these chochmas nefulas, for these chochmas, that there's learning medicine to earn money to serve God. That's an aliyah for medicine. Or there's learning medicine so you can understand the Gemara in Chulin. That's a bigger aliyah for the limud. That's a bigger, deeper aliyah for the limud, and that's what he says. The Rambam and the Ramban Zal were involved in. So that's it. So it comes out just as a sikkim. The way I understand it, and again, everyone's holding in their own. Everyone's holding their own level. But the way I understand it is, you're not allowed to read secular books outside the bathroom, because you could be learning Torah, unless you're like, you just, I don't know, for some other reason you can't, unless you're learning it to earn money, to learn a wisdom, or like to help you in your avodas Hashem, which is actually, but this is really the takeaway, okay, is don't do it for pleasure. If you really get pleasure from learning a secular wisdom, and that's really the reason why you're doing it, you're damaging yourself. Use secular wisdom as a means to an end. It shouldn't be an end unto itself. Okay, so we should be zeicha to bring up all of the sparks back to Rebbeinu Shalom, including the Chochmas Umois Oivdei Gelulim. Any questions?
That was great. Thank you.
What about a secular book that's not that doesn't require chachma, like Harry Potter or something, to relax? Is that better?
Yeah, we said that. If you're not thinking, if it's not,
it doesn't require your Chabad. Yeah,
exactly. That's better than learning. I mean, it's being matame up the person's midas with klipas noiga, but it's better than learning, quantum physics for the pleasure. But then again, maybe you'd say that if it's there to like relax you and so you can get back to avoid Hashem. If you really, this is the whole thing. This is where it all falls to the side. Is that if your life is about the Rebbeinu Shalom, and you're just so clear on the reason why you exist is to serve God, then you don't have to worry about any of this, because everything's for Him, everything. And if you open that book, I read through the Dawkins. What's that book called? The God
Delusion.
The God Delusion. And I went through with a marker and with a pen, and I was going through intending to give a shiur on it, which I will do one day, B'ezrat Hashem. and I'm going to give a share on that book, showing how what he said is ridiculous, and he did say some very good things as well that are actually very good. And this idea of being mavakish emes, and not allowing people to say stupid things, stupid babyish, superstitious things. You should have an intolerance for that. That book helped me with that. It really gave me a fire to not just go you should if someone says something stupid or medieval and superstitious, then call them on it, or at least ask them, just go I'm saying, so there's, once your whole life is going in that direction, and that's what it's all about, then you can really relax. You can really relax because everything's about that. Beseda.
Shmuel, I really liked your Gehenna piece, mixing up ends and means to ends. I think that's really, really good. I was visualizing some sort of chart. Maybe one day I would love to help you, or just people should see, or I should see, what is an end and what is a means to an end.
So do it. That sounds
Yeah.
like something to do.
Okay, good.